Would you watch a show where a billionaire CEO has to go an entire month on their lowest paid employee's salary without access to any other resources than that of the employee? What do you think would happen? They'd be fine. The problem with poverty is not usually day-to-day costs. People can adjust to that. It's unexpected expenses that are crippling. It is a mix. Day to day you can realistically only spend 5 to 10 out of pocket that even a minimum wage worker can deal with. But prorate in the monthly costs. And it gets crazy. In my area, a 1-bedroom in a bad area is still $1,200 per month. Or about $40 a day. Transit for most people will be at least $5, and that is cost of mass transit to and from work. More if you drive, car, insurance, upkeep, gas. Not having a car is not always an option. On 40 hours at $10 an hour, you are bringing in about $1,200 a month. You lose some of that to taxes. But let's be nice and say you get it all. You already cannot afford a studio apartment, so you need a roommate. So you have to hopefully find someone sane, but that is not a given. So basically, on your own, on a full-time minimum wage job, you basically are eating garbage to just not be hungry, living with 2 to 3 roommates with the same problems you have, and will have no ability to save enough to ever make a difference. $500 is huge savings over a whole year for you, and that is not life-changing at all. Yeah, I'm really feeling this here. The average studio here is around $1,200. So I live an hour and a half out of the city and commute 3 to 6 hours a day for slightly above minimum wage. Hardly anyone is hiring locally, that's why it's so much cheaper out here. Couldn't go to school for ages and ages because it was impossible to gather the money for tuition and living expenses while I was treading water. And on top of that there are the physical and mental effects of chronic malnourishment, poor water quality, terrible insulation in -30 weather, and so on. I managed to break the cycle when my province increased minimum wage to 14 hours and instituted free tuition with loans available for living expenses. Literally saved my life. It's not realistic to expect people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. It would be better if they had to live with their lowest salaried employee for a month or two, in their house, dinner with the family, travel to and from work together, same lunch, kids with homework, the works. Building that relation would do much more for this problem than just experiencing below your normal standard of living. Before returning to it, you're more likely to feel empathy for a family you know, and much less likely to forget them. Anything else would just be another show about wealthy people having a fun adventure to talk about at cocktail parties. It would be incredibly self-serving and boring. They would never truly experience what it is like to be in the precarious position of a minimum wage employee living hand to mouth, and the novelty is just salt in the wound. It would be more interesting to see the reverse. There was this similar themed show in Hong Kong and mainland China years ago. They swapped Billionaire with bottom feeders. Let the rich do the basic job on the lowest salary to see how far the rich could go by purely their own effort. Nearly all of the Billionaire admitted that they could not make anywhere, regardless of how hard they worked. Even working without sleeping and resting could not give you any accumulation to help climb up to the higher level of the society. There was only despair and admission that the divide between the poor and the rich is already a deep valley, and mere personal effort makes little sense. It stirred big debate among the society back then, and I think that was part of the reasons the show got cancelled. There was also another show in China, swapping senior political figures with community level council workers to see how good they could do in each other's posts. The mayors were flooded by the angry mobs who kept asking for more and more benefits that were impossible to fulfill. By the end, had to admit the amount of work at basic community level was too much to achieve anywhere. The show also got cancelled quite soon after a few episodes. 3 months minimum, and I'd watch it, with problem scenarios thrown in. Broken down car tube strike, dodgy boiler, sick child, the wheels would come off pretty quickly. It's more than just the money, it's the lack of security these people endure. Not knowing if you'll lose your job tomorrow and having no savings. Being kicked out of your home, an unexpected bill you can't afford, which may lead to increasing debt. Putting these rich people in a poor lifestyle for a month isn't enough. Even if they lost their money and homes, they'll have such a huge network that they'll be back on their feet in the time it takes for us peons to earn enough to eat for a week. They can never truly understand what it's like to be poor or ever face that reality again. So what would happen? It'd be a completely self-serving advert about how now I realize that we need to do more for our employees. The workers get a small vanity bonus. Probably give an immigrant worker with limited English a car. Pat themselves on the back. Then 2 weeks later, we've all forgotten about the show and they'll go back to their old ways. Lots of rich people voluntarily go on vacation to third world countries. The catch is, they know they have a way out and an end date. I'd be interested to watch a show where the CEO had to personally be financially responsible for the welfare of 50% of their lowest paid employees for 10 years. And their net growth percentage equaled their bonus every year. With a big bonus if both the company and the employees were profitable at the end. I'd do more than a month and without any contact to rich budders either. If it's a month, I think a lot would just buy rice and beans every day and go see. It's super easy to be poor. You just need to make economical choices. I've proven myself right. Longer than that, and they'll really have to get used to how their lowest paid employees live. Would they learn a lesson? Maybe. Likely not. They still have a mansion to come back home to. They'll give their lowest paid people a one-time bonus, or maybe they'll drag one out in front of a camera to give them a fancy car so their own reputation gets better. And then they won't change anything else. So basically undercover boss. 1 month isn't long enough because no rent is due, etc. Indeed. 1 year more be more fitting. 1 month is nothing. You should watch Undercover Billionaire on Discovery, not to be confused with Undercover Boss. Billionaire Glenn Stearns moves to EPA with just $100, a truck and no contacts, and has to make a company valued at $1 million in 90 days. He also can't mention who he is to anyone. It's pretty much exactly like you are describing and insanely entertaining. They wouldn't have any trouble. Most of them are self-made, and most have a large number of financial skills that 99% of people don't. They'd macro their finances and come out better off than most people. You think someone like Jeff Bezos, or Bill Gates, or Elon Musk couldn't handle it? Or what about Warren Buffett? The dude is already living a modest life. A lot of dumbasses in the comments seem to fail to realize that a lot of these billionaires were already in a super shitty position before and pulled themselves out of it. These people run massive corporations and charities, and you dumbasses seriously think that living your life for a few months would be a challenge? That's some cringe. There was an episode of American Dad where they tried to live on minimum wage for a month. It was fantastic. No. Slumming is not living your entire life in a slum. Here is what will happen. Fake billionaires will come to this show. Real billionaires will probably not. Those who appear on this show will brag about how they are self-made and their employees could do with even less. We will find out, like Naked and Afraid, that outside of cameras these billionaires were living in their luxury RVs, sipping martinis and having affairs. They would just treat it as a novelty, since they know they will be getting their billions back at the end of the month. They wouldn't have to truly live like a person does who lives hand to mouth every day of their lives. They wouldn't really learn anything from it. In fact, they would probably look back on it and laugh. Oh, remember when we had to eat that can of ravioli, ha ha ha. They would have to swap everything down to the last detail. Apartment, car, if they even have one, wardrobe, food, hobbies, etc. And it would have to be ongoing, not just a couple months. The real question is, how to get a CEO to agree to this? Only if they also put a low-level employee in the CEO's position to highlight that it's not all golf games and getting other people to do your work. Depends if he is self-made or not. Self-made rich people often know very well what it means to be poor, and that's why they worked so hard to not be.